A warm welcome to you, Tariq Shah. Thank you for being
Very
here.
much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're so welcome. Likewise. So you're calling us from Doncaster in the UK, in the northern part of the country, right?
Yes, up in Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire. Okay, wonderful. Reminds me of my childhood when I was spending summers in the UK. All right. So, Tariq, I really enjoyed our previous conversations together. Why don't you share with our audience your story of origin? What got you here?
Okay, so I now run the Vigo Group. We're a third generation family business founded by my granddad when he arrived here in the UK back in 1966. Came here from Pakistan, looking for opportunities to create a better life for himself, my grandma, and their family. And he ended up in Doncaster by accident, ended up in property by accident. And I think that's really been the story of that sort of 60 years is good fortune, taking opportunity, but most importantly, at every stage, doing things that felt like they were the right things to do. And those things that felt like they were the right things to do turning out to be good things to do for the business as well.
Wonderful. Okay. So you've been employed at the company for how long?
20 years now in this current guise. But the family business, there is no such thing as not being in the business when you're in a family business.
Yeah.
So I grew up around it.
Yeah, of course. Dinner table conversations and so on and so forth. Okay. So tell us about the business now. Really give us some juicy details so we can understand exactly what you do and what's been cooking and your role.
So we've been through, as a business, we've been through a range of different changes over the years. We've exited 4 times. But what we do is fundamentally, we see big problems and we try and solve them. So whether that was in the 1980s, solving nursing care for elderly people, whether it was in the thousands, taking factories that had previously had use in the north of England, the same story that you see in so many different places around the world. We took factories that had previously been used, that had employed thousands of people, and we found alternative use for them, brought life back to them. And that's at the heart of what we do. Is we take places. We're a regenerative property developer. We take places that have been great for one thing, and we transform them and find alternative uses. We bring life back into them. We recreate communities, and we find what that next use is for that place, what brings life to a place in the future rather than the past.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So what is your role there?
I think this is one of those really difficult questions that actually it's particularly working in a family business, but also in the kind of industry that we work in, that there is no set role. So my role is to lead the business, to understand the strategy, to drive that forward, but also mostly to bring the team with us on that journey. So some days that could be working with customers. It could be working with some fairly significant customers at times. The NHS in the UK, the health service. It could be other government departments. It could be major companies, or equally that could be working with a startup business to a startup customer who's new in business, looking at how we can support them to grow their business and how that partners with what we're trying to do here. But equally, it might be, yesterday was spent dealing with financing, and tomorrow will be spent dealing with technical issues. We've got a particularly technical project that we're working with Network Rail on, and so we've got meetings with Network Rail tomorrow to try and understand how we solve some of those technical challenges. So the beauty of the industry that we work in, but the work that we do, is firstly that we get to see real change, but also that every day is very different. It's all very varied.
Okay. So how many people work for you there? I'm sure it's labor intensive.
Yes and no. So working with us, we have around about 20 people within the business, but we are a management heavy business. Our delivery is predominantly done through a network of trusted partners and subcontractors. So we could work at any point with anywhere between 50 and 100 people at any one time. But they will be from a range of different trusted partners who come to us, some of whom have been working with us now for 3-4 generations. I think some of those are now grandchildren and approaching great grandchildren of the first generation that we work together with.
And so what have you learned from those exits and reinvention? I mean, I know it's 60 years. That's what you said, 60 years, right? But still, so the company has morphed, right? Changed So what have you learned in those changes and adaptation phases?
There is no such thing as standing still. And the reality is that there's that sort of established, but actually quite false idea that a family business only ever really lasts 3 generations. But there is a reason why businesses, I think, have a shelf life. And that's because as a business person, as an entrepreneur, what you do is you find something, you find a niche, you find something where there's a gap and you fill that gap. What happens over time is that more and more people come in, they see that gap, they recognize what you're doing, and they come in, and that gap becomes smaller and smaller. And if all that we do is we try and fit into that gap all the time, then all you're doing is you're squeezing everything constantly. So that puts a natural shelf life on whatever it is that we do. And our view is that what we have to do is we have to constantly be innovating. So regardless of whether that's, yes, we'll still work in real estate. The work in real estate goes from the first house that my grandfather bought in Doncaster for renovation, all the way through to the last project that I'll do in my life and hopefully beyond. But within that industry, the level of innovation, the level of transformation and change is constant and consistent. So everything that we've done has been around finding uses within that real estate that solve problems. And what those problems are and how we deliver on those, that's a bit that changes over time. So the way that we work, we have to constantly be innovating.
And your teams follow suit with you? Like they're used to that, or teams change as well?
We work in that environment. So the team are used to working in an environment of change and transformation. But I think there's a little bit of science and a little bit of art to how we try and do that. There's some tools that we use whenever we're looking at change. So a good example of that is finding early wins. Whenever we're implementing new technology, whenever we're doing something in a new way, you don't go in and heavy-handedly force things upon people, whether that's delivering projects in a new way or whether that's delivering operations, and whether that's the implementation of AI, which is a hot topic at the moment, or any other form of transformation. The first step is to find small wins, then to find small wins that are beneficial, not just for the business, but for the people that work within the business and partner with us, and ensure that in everything that we do, that we're doing that in a way that is win-win, that our employees, that our staff, that our team here, that the people that work with us, that the partners that work with us, that the customers that we work with, that in each case as we're innovating, that at each step we're finding things that create wins for all of us.
Sure. That's very important for sure, to engage people and feel like they're walking on the solid ground, that can expand from. So what do you see, coming on your market right now? What are the big trends that are shaping your vision of the company and your response to the market?
So we are by the nature of what we do, we are very driven by sort of large and small trends. So as an example, one of the things that we're responding to at the moment is what's been called the death of the high street. We don't see it as a death of a high street. We see it as a transformation of the high street.
Explain that to us, the death of the high street.
So the story goes that as COVID happened, Amazon came along, some of these really big changes, the internet became developed, that people stopped using the high street in the way that they once did. So we no longer do our shopping by walking down to the high street and going to the butcher and going to the baker, and we'll maybe go to a mega center, or alternatively we go online because it's more convenient to have Amazon delivered to our door than it is to walk down to the high street. But we don't see that as a threat. So our job is to reimagine what that high street might mean to communities, and to take a step back and say, actually, is this about consumerism? Or is this really about finding a place that is the center of a community? Is the reason that people use the high street because it was the only option or the most convenient option? And now that that's been replaced, how do we transform that? So looking at what the mix of uses need to be within urban centers, that's bringing more residential that brings long-term communities. So that might mean, as an example, one of the projects that we are looking at the moment, bringing suburbs closer into town. So treating a town or city center as your local high street rather than as a hub that only draws people in from outside. It might mean bringing more businesses in of different kinds. So our Cavendish Court development, as an example, we have around about 100 different businesses that operate in this scheme. Once upon a time, this was built originally as the home of a trader. It went through a number of different hands. In the UK, it became the northern head office of the National Coal Board, the government's coal mining organization. We took that site over in the year 2000, a site that was derelict, that was dead, that was on the edge of town, that in an area that had fallen apart alongside it. So it had, once upon a time, it had been the driver of great place that had brought people into that place. It had had hundreds of people working here. And what we did is we reimagined it, not just as a potential large office or as anything else, but as a mixed use community that brings together healthcare. So we delivered on site here. 20 years ago this year, we delivered the UK's first Darcy Centre, easy access healthcare centre here, close to town, but accessible. We've got businesses ranging from new startups all the way through to well-established business. And in fact, one of our clients who started here at Cavendish Court as a two-person startup business has this year sold out for a very, very significant price, 7 years after starting the business here. And so, but we support that business growth within this site. So we've taken here, from a financial perspective, from an economic perspective for us, we've taken a space that was empty, creating nothing. We are 100% occupied here, with everything from people living to people working to people using healthcare facilities. But also from the perspective of creating community and opportunity, we've created a space and a community that develops businesses, that's uplifted the area, that's transformed the space around it.
And one question for you. So you buy, you own, and you manage, right? Okay.
Yes.
And you resell at some point, or?
Sometimes, but not very often. Okay. So some people collect cars, others collect watches or stamps, and sadly, we collect property.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So that shift, from away from high street, which you challenge, right? And you kind of reinterpret, as you said, that provides business opportunities for you?
It does, yeah. So that opens opportunities for us to work both directly, we acquire sites, as we say, and we redevelop those, but also to work at a much larger scale, working with partners in the public sector, local authorities, other public sector bodies, to both in terms of delivering on the vision they have, developing that vision alongside them. So one of the things that I do here in Doncaster is that I chair our city board, which is looking at the regeneration of the city centre on a much broader basis, but also working with them, alongside them, to deliver on that transformation, as well as just talking through it. So yes, that creates opportunity, but as I said at the start, sometimes doing the right thing can also be the right thing to do.
Yeah. Understood. All right. So you were talking about the technological, challenge right now that you're dealing with. Why don't you tell us more about it? I'm intrigued.
So we, alongside the work that we do, so we see ourselves as regenerators, real estate developers, but we are underneath all of that is the operation that happens to deliver on that change. So that's the circular economy work that we do through our recycling business that takes construction and demolition waste and recycles that into usable materials. It's our construction arm, construction business. Now, what we know in those industries is that we are the least productive industries in the UK. And actually, if you take that globally, we're the least productive industries globally. The construction industry, particularly of today, is one that would not be unfamiliar to an operative who'd been working in it in the 1960s when we first set up, and probably even earlier. Materials might have changed a little, the tools have changed, but fundamentally the processes haven't really fundamentally changed. And actually, we see that there is an opportunity now. That story of constantly innovating, some of the tools that have become available, and some of the tools that are becoming available, if we are able to use those effectively, give us some very significant advantages and give us the opportunity to really drive that productivity forwards. So we are, I wouldn't say we are expert users of AI, but we are certainly extensive users of AI to do everything from helping us to support with research into novel ways of operating, helping us to pull together large and disparate forms of information. So our business now is, if I go back to when I started 20 years ago, it was about delivery. A lot of the work that we do now is about understanding the environment in which we operate. So ensuring that we are compliant. So some of the sort of artificial intelligence tools now help us on that journey, but also helping us to understand and make sure that we're delivering a product that is of great quality. Giving back time to so as you can probably tell, we are an incredibly small team working on a large number of projects, quite large scale projects. So in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to deliver that with a small, very highly qualified team, what we have to do is constantly try and give them back time that they can use to do more productive things. But also, I think we are on the cusp of seeing robotics transform the construction industry in a way that we haven't really seen since the 1970s and 80s with the introduction of large-scale machinery into the industry.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. So what is the next level for your company?
So in terms of AI, we will continue to develop and make use of it, being really careful. So one of the things that we see, one of the challenges that we see around this is that because it's the thing at the moment, it's the thing that everybody's talking about, people are taking technology. There's a tendency to take the technology and try and build a solution around that. And so what we're trying to do is we are trying to inform all of our processes with the technology that is available, the best technology that's available at the time. Yeah. So we're taking the things that we already do, and then we're trying to transform those individual things utilizing technology where it's necessary and best practice to do so. But I think as we move forward, so the transfer of information from the physical to the digital world and from the digital back to the physical is where that big change is going to happen over the next few years, I expect. So, and that's going to mean a really big transformation in terms of how we train our teams. Yeah. So we are going to need to bring people with us on that journey to make sure that they are experienced and they understand how to make use of that technology in the forms that it exists today, in preparation for the forms that it will exist in years to come. It's making sure that that journey is supportive of the goals of the business, and the values of the business, and not just enabling us to deliver a bigger bottom line. What we are here for, obviously, there is a hygiene factor of being able to make a profit in business. That's sure. Fundamental. When you stop doing that, the business doesn't last for very long. But beyond that hygiene factor, we're not there just to deliver profit. We're there to create transformation and change. And so what we need to do is to ensure that we're utilizing technologies in a way that is beneficial to the communities that we work in, that's beneficial to the places that we work, and doesn't detract from them and damage them. So as we're thinking about that transition into AI, as we're thinking about the transition into robotics, as the world becomes more globalized, frankly, it's easier for me to reach much further now, both in terms of where we work, but also who we work with. But ensuring that those communities that we work with and support, that we are bringing them on the journey with us, which is why some of the work that we do around startup businesses within those communities that we work with is so important. It's why the work that we do within communities, within the public sector is important. And it's why we continue to work really closely with our partners in the public sector to help them envisage change. And I think that having diverse voices around this conversation is really important, because we and others bring perspectives that otherwise don't get heard in these sort of forums.
Understood. That's very interesting. Very thought out, I would say. It's great to hear. So do you also work in foreign countries, overseas markets?
So we have in the past. We are predominantly a UK-based business, but we do have experience overseas. And again, wherever we look to work, so whether that's around the UK, we still do a lot of business around the area we started, because this is our home market. And also, we like to have an impact in the place that has given us so much as well. We are very conscious here that the only reason that we have a business that is of the scale and the complexity that it is today is because of the foundations that we built in the small village that my grandparents moved to when they came here in the 1960s. It's from Doncaster, the town, now city, that we've grown up in and we've built the business in. It's from the UK where we've got that, but that our values are also connected to, as I say, we are the product of immigration, and that those values and that history is connected to a whole range of other places, most immediately Pakistan, but other places that have fed into that journey as well. So we are committed to our home market, but equally where we can add value in other places, we will look to add that value as well. And that means not going just because we see a short-term profit opportunity, but going because we see a transformation opportunity. We see an opportunity to do things that are beneficial and that will help.
Sure. In keeping with your mission. Yes, sure. But I would imagine that, as you said, your network and understanding of the different stakeholders in a given market, from public offices to the entrepreneurial hub in Doncaster, really makes it not so easy to replicate when you're not there, when you're part of it, when you have not grown in those communities. So I think, yeah. So does it make your business somewhat exposed to the ups and downs of the economy, of the local economy?
Yeah, so we are. So what we try and do as a business is we try and ensure that we manage exposure. So within our business units, we have different business units that are exposed to different parts of the market. We have interest investments in different places, but also we look through the initial customer into the underlying income streams. So what we're trying to understand is not which customer is paying us, but how are they earning their revenue? And we're looking for diversity of that underlying income. So what that means is that within a particular geographical area, we will be looking for differences in plurality in the types of businesses that we're working with, the types of income sources. We'll look for geographical diversity, but also that we're looking for depth as well. So when we're working with partners, how well established are those partners? How stable are they? How secure? And most importantly, more than anything else, and this doesn't change whether you're dealing with people in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or the UK or America, is who are you working with? Because fundamentally, great ideas, great businesses come and go. But if you're working with good people, good intentions in whatever you're doing, then that gives you the best chance of success.
So Tariq, if I were to give you a magic wand, what is it that you would fix overnight within your circle of influence? So meaning within the business that you lead, as you said, what is it that you would change, that you would like to change, to see happen?
So pace. So one of the biggest challenges that we see in our industry right now is that the time it takes to deliver projects.
Yeah.
And I think this is a UK specific problem, but it's one that extends beyond the UK as well, in that it takes too long to get from the start of the process to the start of delivery, and then to see that delivery and transformation. And what we need in order to create real change, what we need is to see change happen at pace and consistently. So we need a scale of change that is moving quickly, but also that's happening constantly over time as well. Yeah, and that's how we create those great places, those great communities, the excitement around the places that we work in. So being able to manage some of those regulatory hurdles, to be able to simplify some of that, and to be able to get to the end, the outcome much more quickly, it actually has a whole range of knock-on benefits that go beyond just the speed of delivery.
Of course. And then you're also depending on your vendors, as you said, like all these people that you bring on to the projects, and they're people that are not really under your management, Yeah. So that's a problem in itself.
It's a big challenge in the construction industry because of the fragmentation. But I think the other challenge that creates, and the one that we have to be sort of cognizant of, is that what we do as an industry is we try and shift a liability down the chain. So in a lot of cases, you've got a really long chain between the customer, the end customer or the developer, and the person actually delivering work within a construction site. And at each stage, what we're trying to do is the developer shifts risk into a main contractor. The main contractor shifts risk into a package subcontractor, and they shift risk down into smaller subcontractors. So all that does is it takes the risk down to the level that is least able to cope with that and to deal with it. And what we have to do, I think, is to look across that chain and look at how do we create value for everybody in that chain. It's very important that we're able to deliver, and we deliver in a world of complexity, and some of that is really valuable. But at the same time, how do we place risk in the right place, and how do we understand our own risk? And that comes to, really understanding the business, but also it's where technology can really help. So things like project bank accounts that are now available in digital form, I think is a really interesting innovation. Financial services innovation that helps to ensure that there is funding available for a project, and that funding is getting to the right places and identifies early where things are going wrong. Utilizing technology to ensure that we're distributing information to the right place in the chain, and actually that information is understandable and accessible. So it's no good sending complicated reporting to a subcontractor who's unable to deal with that just because that passes liability to them. So what we have to do is try and find a way to deliver the information that they need to work safely, to work effectively, and to work profitably, and to deliver a product that is of the quality.
Yeah. There's a path forward or the path through. Yeah. Well, anything else that you would like to add?
Firstly, to say thank you very much for inviting me on here. It's been wonderful to have this conversation. But also, if there are, for any of your listeners out there who are thinking about how we transform places, this is a call to go out there and get involved today. So we are in a world of change at the moment. The places that we live are all changing, and that change is really delivered at a place-based level. I fundamentally believe that we transform things at a macro scale by solving them first at that smaller level. And that's what we as a business, what we do. But the only way we can do that is to have diversity of thought engaged in some of those big social challenges. So whether it's climate change, whether it's the use of our places, working with organizations like ours, but also working with our partners in the public sector. We need more people to get involved and to come up with some of these great ideas that change places, and to really feel that they have responsibility for their places and that we all have responsibility for our places, and to get on and make a difference in those.
Wonderful. Very inspiring. Really. Okay. Tariq, a legacy of 60 years that you are leading forward in a world in fast track change, right? So quite an achievement. Thank you. Quite inspiring. Thank you, Tariq. Maybe we'll have you in a year to see where you're at and what you've been able to manifest.
I'd be delighted. Thank you. Pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you. Thank you, Tariq.